Hello everyone, I'm William Strife, and welcome to the Skyrim mod video. So, many of you already know, I've got a new Skyrim series going on, and, it is a modded version of Skyrim, and, one of the most common things that I will be asked whenever I do a series like this, and I think basically, whenever anybody does a Skyrim series or a series over a Bethesda game in general, there's going to be a million questions about, oh, what mods are you making? And in the past, whenever I've done this with the Fallout games, I have done, some sort of a mod video, or I've promised a mod video. The fact of the matter, though, is that I've not always held to that promise, and it comes down to the fact that it kind of feels like tech support going over what mods I use and I don't use. And before I even cover the mods that I'm using in this particular build of Skyrim here, I want to cover the fact that these are the mods that I find fun, and what I find fun about mods are, things that just make the game look better. So none of the mods that I've installed or that I'm using in the gameplay change the way that the game functions, okay? So if it adds extra items, I don't use it. If it, changes the effects of spells or completely reworks a talent tree or something, I don't use it. That's just the whole entire deal. All of the mods that I use are purely aesthetic. They're what I like to call vanilla mods because they don't change the mechanics of the game. They just change the visuals of the game. So that's a thing. Now, let's go ahead and jump in to what mods I'm actually using. It's actually not a terribly long list. Yeah, I've got 10 mods installed. So, and even then, only one of them is not a visual mod. So 9 of these mods are completely visual. Right out of the gate, I'm running Skyrim Special Edition. That's the first thing you need to know. Also, all of the mods, they're going to be listed down below in the description. And if I add or take away a mod during the course of my gameplay, I will be certain to let you know. I will change the list down below, even though it will not be reflected in the video. So, links below. And I'm going to go over these mods in the order at which I activate them whenever I'm modding the game, okay? So, because I'm doing nothing but aesthetic mods, it means that sometimes mods are going to conflict with each other, and the mod that you activate second is going to rewrite right over the mod that you activated first, So, whenever there's overlap occurring, the most recently activated mod is what takes precedent over, all of the mods in there. So this is the order in which I activate them because, I want some mods overriding other mods whenever there's a conflict. So the first thing that I went out and got was the 4K texture pack. Now, the 4K texture pack, as you can see here, is pretty straightforward. It's just a massive, and I mean a massive boost to the resolution and the fidelity of the entirety of Skyrim. And the goal of this particular resolution texture replacement pack is to literally just make the game look cleaner and more crisp, just to replace all of the textures in the game so that you have just something way, way more clean. And it works in some places, the way that the textures have been replaced, and for that matter, this is one of the mods that I'm going to have to go back and look at because not all the textures in the game have been replaced. That is the promise from the person who came up with this mod. The idea is I'm going to replace all of the textures in the game, but not all of them are replaced yet, and they're all supposed to be replaced at some point, but the modder is still getting to that point. So that's the idea behind the 4K texture replacement. It takes this boosts the amount of RAM that you actually need in your game. But because the 4K textures are not complete, not all of the textures are replaced, it means that it's a perfect mod to be overwritten by other mods, okay? So the second mod in the list that I have is what's known as realistic water. Okay, so the thing about the water in Skyrim is that if you watch it on just the vanilla level, you can see that basically all of the water, no matter where it's at, whether it's in a stream or in a lake, if it's the sea, all of the water looks exactly the same, and that's because they all have the exact same texture map that's giving it, that ripply effect. So the idea behind this mod, the realistic water version 2, is that it softens the look of water against a shoreline, because in some of these pictures here, you can see that there's a very hard cut where the water stops and it meets the geometry of the land, and that's just kind of an ugly, I can really see the lines there. So that's one of the things that it addresses. It also addresses the sounds of, like, the way that a river sounds versus the way that a lake sounds, or the way that the shore sounds. There's also the fact that it changes the noise map, which creates those water ripples. Okay, so So rivers look like they're rushing, and lakes look like they're far more placid because they're just kind of sitting there. And, it just makes water in general look better, and it softens the way that water looks whenever it reaches the shoreline, and you don't get any hard edges. So that's the second mod that I'm running. The third mod is what's known as the Flora Overhaul. So Flora Overhaul, well, it's pretty straightforward. It replaces pretty much all of the grass. It replaces a series of trees in the game. I think it replaces grass, at least. Don't quote me on a lot of this stuff. You'll have to check the actual mod pages from the Nexus to find out for certain. But it replaces a lot of the tree models, and it replaces the textures that paint those trees. And I'm pretty certain that the grass is replaced as well. I don't think that it really replaces any of the alchemy ingredients in the game, though, which means that, despite the fact that the flowers and whatnot, they could look better, they're not really all that phenomenally improved. So, after the Flora Overhaul is the Static Mesh Improvement. Now, Static Mesh Improvement is one that I'm a little bit on the fence about, because if you look at some of these pictures, whenever you look at barrels, whenever you look at thatch fences and whatnot, it takes these objects in the world that were once very simply modeled, and it adds a little bit of depth. So, like, you can see the actual metal ring jutting out from a barrel. You can see that a thatched fence, it has geometry. All of the sticks in it are actually modeled and whatnot. So there's it's an extra level of detail. The problem is that because it remodels certain containers, such as barrels, it also changes their animation for opening and whatnot. So certain barrels, whenever you open them and you try to loot them, you end up with this longer animation, and it's just a little bit on the ugly side, I guess you could say. So, well, not on the ugly side. It stretches out the animation, and I think that it actually takes longer to loot some containers as a result. Luckily, it doesn't do that to chests, but I'm a little bit back and forth. But yeah, Static Mesh Improvements, I took it because it improves the look of, some very small things that otherwise were, like, modeled as pretty flat objects, and then they're given a little bit more depth here. So, next up is the Book of Silence. This is technically called a Middenborn, I think it's called, or Maidenborn. I don't really know how it's supposed to be said, but it's Book of Silence. And Book of Silence is actually comes in 4 pieces. It comes in armors, creatures, unique items, and weapons. So this mod is pretty much just explicitly, it retextures all of the armor. It retextures the creatures, it retextures unique items, it retextures weapons. So the idea behind the Book of Silence series of mods is that it just brings a higher level of fidelity to the actual items that you can pick up in the game. So armors, creatures, special, quest items and whatnot, shields and weapons, and then the standard weapons in the game, and it comes in 4 parts. And also there are special patches that you have to apply. Now, there's something else that I need to point out, which is the fact that the Book of Silence has never been ported over to the special edition of Skyrim, but because it's more or less just a texture replacement pack, the original version of it from the standard Skyrim will work with the special edition Skyrim. There might be a couple of hiccups here and there, but it does, the standard version does work with the special edition. The catch is that I install all of these mods through the Nexus Mod Manager, but there's no way that you can download a standard Skyrim mod through the Nexus Mod Manager, so you have to manually download the Book of Silence and actually import it into the Mod Manager manually. The manager will still actually activate the mod, do the easy click, you're done. but you have to go through the extra trouble of like downloading each individual zip pack and then dropping those into your mod manager separately. So that's another thing. But yeah, it just improves the look of all of the armor, all of the weapons, significant number of creatures, as well as, you know, some of the really high tier quality quest rewards, unique items and whatnot. So, after Book of Silence is the next thing to follow that up naturally is what's known as Rustic Clothing. Now, Rustic Clothing is a natural follow-up to the Book of Silence, specifically because where the Book of Silence improves all of these textures and detail for weapons and armor and the things that you're going to be picking up that are awesome loot, it does nothing for the clothing. So, you know, you walk into a town and now you've got this high-resolution texture for, you know, the world, and then of course you've got like the static mesh replacement to improve like ropes and whatnot that are around the town and the look of the barrels, and then all the people are walking around, they're still wearing all that, you know, low resolution muddy clothing. And I don't think that this mod actually properly activated whenever I recorded the first episode, and I didn't realize until after I published. But Rustic Clothing is literally just a high fidelity, you know, upgrade to the clothing textures so that you get significantly more detail, and you know, they look freaking awesome as a result of it. I am using specifically a 4K version of it, so that's one of the things there. This applies to all of your mage's robes, all of your fine attire, all of your rags, etc. So basically, if it's not an armor piece, the Rustic Clothing mod probably affects it. And following up on Rustic Clothing is a companion mod, which is called Rustic Soulgems. Now, Rustic Soulgems, you know, I'm a little bit skeptical about whether or not this is even worth getting, but it increases the resolution of the textures on soul gems. But more than that, what's more important than that is the fact that it will properly organize soul gems in your inventory. So if you're, you know, a Skyrim devotee, if you are a enthusiast about Skyrim, then you know the order in which the soul gems in the game are ranked from smallest to largest, being petty, lesser, common, greater, grand, and black, okay? But the problem is that your inventory sorts everything alphabetically, okay? So none of your soul gems appear in your inventory in order. So what Rustic Soulgems does, aside of increasing the resolution of the texture on the soul gems, as well as making them more see-through to make them look more like gems instead of oddly colored rocks or shards of glass, the mod renames all of your soul gems to like 1, 2, 3, 4, in addition to the name, you know, petty, lesser, common, grand, greater, and grand, so that all of your mods are ordered by that number associated with them in your inventory, and they actually sort in the in a hierarchical system where it's like, yeah, the small one is going to be at the top of the list and the big ones are going to be at the bottom of the list, which is a whole lot better for inventory management and just for spotting stuff instead of, you know, being stuck on, oh, well, it started with a T, you know, it started with a P, so let's look through all the random junk that I have in my inventory. So Rustic Soulgems, more for reorganizing the soul gems in my inventory. So next up, after Rustic Soulgems, is Awesome Potions. This is one that is entirely aesthetic, one that I always actually look for whenever I go out and get, you know, mod any sort of a Elder Scrolls game. I would do it with Morrowind. I also did it with Oblivion, and here in Skyrim I do it with Awesome Potions. This doesn't change anything in regards to how the potions in the game actually work and how alchemy functions. It just introduces an enormous number of different bottles to the game to make potions look cooler. Just you know, because you've got basically, I don't know, maybe half a dozen to a dozen different models for, you know, potion bottles in the game, and they all look like they're colored bottles. They don't look like they've got anything inside of them. So yeah, this mod just replaces all of those textures. It replaces the models for the bottles, and then, you know, it also has, you know, these textures inside of it that make it look like there's something interesting going on inside of the bottle as well. So they just look way cooler, and admittedly it also makes them harder to spot whenever you're going through a dark dungeon or something, but I'll take better looking potions over, visibility any day, mostly because it's really, really boring, especially as a lover of alchemy myself, to just see the same freaking bottles over and over. So, purely aesthetic in that sense, doesn't really serve any purpose beyond that. And the last aesthetic mod that I have installed is a better world map. So, the world map mod that I have installed, or actually, technically it's called a quality world map, and there's more than one version of this. I believe that the quality world map comes in like a paper version as well, which is kind of unique if that's what you're interested in. But quite explicitly, it just enhances the actual terrain of the map, the actual three-dimensional terrain of it, and then it drapes a better, higher resolution image over the entire terrain so that you can see far more detail and it becomes less muddy, and it's significantly more clear where you are traveling out to, where you are, what your surroundings are, etc. So a better map is just, simply put, it's making the map easier to read whenever you open it up to look around. So not too much going on there. There's more than one version of this. I believe I downloaded the classic version with all roads. There's more than one version with, with more roads, with less roads. There's, classic. There's probably something called rustic. I don't remember them all, but that's the idea behind it. Just a higher resolution map that's easier to, read whenever you need to. And that's all of the actual aesthetic mods. It's the 4K textures, the realistic water, Flora Overhaul, static mesh improvement, the Book of Silence, rustic clothing, rustic Soulgems, awesome potions, and the world map. Now that's 9, I think, mods. So the last mod that I install is one that is absolutely necessary. If you don't get any aesthetic mods, if your machine can't handle it, that's all good and well, but do what you need to actually get the game to run. But absolutely, of any mod that I can advise anyone to get, it is the Unofficial Skyrim patch, and that is the final mod that I install. It is activated separately and different from the other mods. It's actually a plugin that has to be activated as part of the install, etc. And the Unofficial Skyrim patch has to be, the first thing that's activated after all of the default files that come out of the game. So, that means Skyrim, Update, Dawnguard, Hearthfire, Dragonborn. Those are your standard files, those first 5 of them. And then right after the, the basic vanilla default files, you have to activate the Unofficial Special Edition patch, because it's very temperamental with any other plugins, so that's an important thing to keep track of. But it fixes a lot of bugs, and admittedly, it can kind of make the game a little bit harder because it gets rid of a few useful exploits, quite honestly. But overall, it adds way more to the game and fixes a lot of bugs and gets rid of a lot of trouble that you can run into. So unofficial patches are very common for Bethesda games. I always activate them, I always download them, and the community is almost always going to have one centric unofficial patch that fixes untold amounts of problems with the game, which makes it completely worth getting. But anyways, that's pretty much everything for me. I've told you all of the mods that I have installed for my Skyrim play. Again, all of the links for these mods are down in the description. You'll have to sort through the technicalities and how to, install them and how to get them all working properly on your own. I'm not, tech support here. If you ask me down in the comments, oh, could you help me with the mods? No, I won't help you with the mods. And I'm very hesitant to even do a video like this, because I really hate just messing around with mods. So, in any case, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully you guys find this useful. But in any case, I'll see you guys in the Skyrim play, and hopefully now you know what I'm using. You'll be able to follow along with me if you want on your own, and enjoy Skyrim that much more on your own time. I'll see you in an episode of Skyrim, probably tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye!